for a conversation around Nigeria's power sector, plans for an increased electricity tariff, and how all of that can affect distribution in the downstream sector, including the consumers of the resource. We're now being joined by Chief Sunday Oduntan, a lawyer and executive director for Research and Advocacy Association of Nigerian Electricity Distributors. Welcome to the program, Chief Oduntan.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Well, without much ado, consumers of electricity in Nigeria were told that by July 1, that is today, that the tariffs will go up. The tariffs were supposed to have been increased by April, but because of COVID-19, that was suspended, and then we were told July 1st. And now with the intervention of the National Assembly, the Senate President says the DISCOs have reached an agreement with government to ensure that these tariffs are suspended till the first quarter of the year 2021. And then there was some back and forth about the tariffs, with the regulator issuing a gag order that his name should not be mentioned at all by the DISCOs. What exactly are the issues at stake with regard to tariffs, and how are the DISCOs taking this, although we've been told that they were part of the decision?
Thank you very much. First of all, let me make it very clear that we are not politicians. We are businessmen, so we do not get involved in the back and forth between the National Assembly and the executive. However, if the National Assembly or the executive call us to a meeting or a hearing, we have no choice than to attend in order to safeguard our own business interests as well, and of course, as patriotic Nigerians. So whenever they take any decision, or whatever decision they take, we shall always obey lawful decision. As far as we are concerned, as far as the power sector is concerned, the DISCOs will continue to work with our regulator and the government to fix the problem in the power sector. So the issue about tariff, whether now or later, whether next day, tomorrow, or next year, or 2 years' time, we just want Nigerians to be aware of the fact that the shortfall remains there and is piling up, that there's always a need for cost recovery in order for us to provide better service, to serve Nigeria better, and to reinvest in the system. That is very, very important for all of us to know. As regards the letter from NEC, which you mentioned, we were shocked, we were taken aback by the letter. In this time of democracy in a country like this, we did not expect the regulator, who is in charge of approval of tariff, to now send us a letter saying, when you communicate with your customer, please don't mention NEC and don't mention federal government. It's just like saying that the midwife should not mention a mother who has just given birth to a baby, because they don't want the world to know who the mother is. NEC is the mother of this sector. They are the regulator. Nobody can fix any tariff without NEC approval. Our own role is just to send in our proposal. They fix, they reduce, they increase, they choose the timing, they choose the mode, they choose everything to do with the tariff, because that is their statutory duty. So we are surprised that a regulator can even play the ostrich and say, let me bury my head in the sand, don't say I'm there, or don't say I was there, don't say I knew about it. So that's how shocked we were. But on top of that, we will continue to work with them, the regulator and the government. Our own interest is for there to be a viable power sector where Nigerians can have electricity. What Nigerians want is electricity. Nigerians don't want stories. Talk is cheap. We can talk from now till eternity. Unless and until we do the right thing, Nigerians will not be happy. Just like when you talk about the sector today, Nigerians want meters. And unless and until that is provided for every household, unless and until we even make it compulsory for people to have meters in their homes as a matter of compulsion, we will still be talking and having argument every time about all of these things. So for us, we do not have any problem with either the executive, the National Assembly, or even the regulator. But we think this what happened in the last 24 hours underscores the need for there to be regulatory and policy consistency. It also underscores the need for there to be more collaboration and, of course, the need for coordination in the power sector, so that before an action is taken, all stakeholders must also be consulted. They have to be on the same page, not when a regulator fixes a date, perhaps without talking to those people that matters, and then it happens that such people, in this case the National Assembly, now turn around and say, no, you can't do it. Then we are a very sensitive industry, the discourse. You will recall that a while ago we came out, again in conjunction with the leadership of the National Assembly, we came out to suggest to the federal government that we should give Nigerians free electricity for 2 months, which of course had to be paid for by the federal government, because for us as distributor, as the Yoruba people say, Oja Oloja Lanta, we are selling other people's products. We are not the owner of electricity. But that didn't happen, understandably, because the federal government had no money to pay because of the downturn in the federal government revenue and all the others. But that just shows you that we are very sensitive to the feelings and the yearnings of Nigeria. So we welcome anything that will give Nigerians that peace, that opportunity to recoup their losses brought about by COVID-19. But please remember, electricity is a product that has to be paid for, and we need to have a situation of cost recovery in order to serve you better.
Thank you, Chief Oduntan, for outlining the fact that you are sensitive to the pressures, especially those that have now been imposed by the COVID-19 pandemic, which I imagine is why the National Assembly has to step in on behalf of the people. Seeing as you yourself have conceded that an increase in tariffs does not mean an increase in supply, there are other issues that need to be addressed, including metering that you just mentioned, transmission. There's so many other issues. So the customer would not want to be the one to pay even more and still not get what they're paying for, which is probably why NERC was hiding behind you. When you know a policy, as necessary as it may be, is unpopular, you're not going to be that bold about it. So can we address how, even though the evil day has been delayed, it's still coming at some point, tariffs will be increased? What can the customer get? We need bang for our buck. It's not fair to pay more and still not get the services that we're paying for.
Thank you, Olatundu. You need to, first of all, agree with me that when people pay more, they get more. Pay more can translate into getting more. And I'll just give you an example. Here we're in Lagos, so I'll use Lagos as my example, but we have it in other parts of the country. Under Ikeja Electric, Magodo Estate, Shonibare Estate, GRA, Ikeja GRA, and some other locations, where we have customers who choose to pay premium. Today they are getting between 18 and 24-hour electricity. They do not use their generator again. This is something you can find out. Everybody knows about it. What that tells us is if we pay the appropriate price for this product, then the people collecting from you, the discos, who only owns about 20% of the collection, will be able to pay the producers. The producers, which are the generation companies, can then be able to pay the gas suppliers. And then the transmission company, which is the transporter, can be paid. Even the regulator that we talk about, Nigerians need to know that the regulators are fed, paid, sponsored from the tariff that you pay. So if people don't pay, then a lot of things would not exist. So the question now is, how do we make things better? The first and the most important thing that we need to do is to get to a situation where people can measure what they consume. We need meters like yesterday. Enough of policy somersault. And you may recall that a while ago, maybe 2 years ago now, or a little over 2 years, the former Minister for Power one day unilaterally made an announcement that metering is not the primary responsibility of the discos. So they took the metering away from our hand. Discos are no more in charge of metering. Whatever anybody tells you, the truth is discos are not directly in charge of metering. They formed, we had what they call MAP, Meter Asset Providers, which of course are businessmen, meter importers, meter manufacturers, and we welcome the idea. Our own role is to work under MAP, to work with those people and work under them to open up our billing platform, our computer database, so that they can install meters. But no soon after these people started, the same problem that we face, they began to face the same problem. Number one problem, the issue of Forex. Now, number two, the federal government, unfortunately, instead of encouraging these people to bring in meters for local manufacturers, they need to import some chips. You cannot manufacture a whole meter in this country without importing some little electronic chips. In the case of three-phase meter, they need about 7 to 9 components that are imported. The federal government slammed a 10%, between 10 and 15% duty, import duty, on those components. That does not and cannot and will not encourage local meter manufacturers. That's number one. For those who import whole meters, the federal government has imposed 35% import duty. This is the only country where such thing happens. A product that is needed badly by Nigerians, instead for us to make it happen, make it available, we now make it impossible for it to come into the country. There are meters now in a Papa port waiting to be cleared, but this issue of imposition of 35% import duty makes it totally difficult for those people to bring in meters. So we need meters because when people are metered, for us as discos, it becomes a revenue assurance for us because people do not argue much when they have meters. But when people are not metered and you give them estimated billing, even when they are underbilled, they shout. When they are overbilled, they shout. Estimated billing is evil. It's not the best thing for us. It's not the best thing for Nigerians. So we need meters. Those who, the regulator who is in charge of MAP, who appoints MAP providers, they need to be talking to each other from Federal Minister of Power to the Federal Minister of Finance who are in charge of customs. We need to, not just waivers, we need to make importation of meters duty-free. And we need to get to a point where we say every household must be metered. If you are not metered, you should not be connected to the grid. That is what we need in Nigeria. That is what our customers need. That is what the discos want. That's where we are.
Thank you, Chief Oduntan. Now that the increase in tariff has been deferred to April 2021, there's a cost to the federal government, isn't there? The Central Bank of Nigeria will have to extend its payment assurance guarantee to the generating companies to keep them generating power and to make up for the market shortfall. Can you tell us what this cost will be, and is it sustainable for the federal government at this time?
Some of your questions are meant for the federal government. In fact, even for the CBN governor. I would not, and I cannot say what government can do or what they cannot do. Only government know what they can afford. As far as we are concerned, what we are saying is that when you have a shortfall that is in excess of 1.5 trillion naira and it's still building every day, when you have a system where there are no meters and we are losing 20 billion a month to energy theft. So we need to all work together. And the point we've been making in NADED is that there's no point having a sector where the stakeholders are not talking to one another. There's no point having a sector where you will go for a meeting and a big man who is not even part of the power sector will be talking to the stakeholders as if the person is talking to, headmaster is talking to the pupils. And even when one tries to talk, you now say, no, no, don't talk, I will mute your microphone. That still happened yesterday between a big man in Nigeria and people in the power sector. Just because you are meant to provide finance or work out things does not make you a god. We should work together to make Nigeria better. But unfortunately in Nigeria, when we get to power, we become somebody else. So I'm praying and I'm pleading with the federal government and everybody involved, from the federal executive to the National Assembly, to the CBN, to all the stakeholders in power sector, to come together, work together, collaborate, and ensure that there's better coordination that will give us a better power sector. That's what we can say.
I mean, I'm quite sad. For my interest as a journalist, I would like to know that big man that muted the microphone in a time where power is very germane to the development of the country. I think there's a stat that says for every 1,000 megawatts you produce in this country, it increases the GDP of that nation. And power is needed at a time like this. I mean, if you would avail me that name, or Nigerians, not even me now, but Nigerians that name, because so let's see the faces of people that have taken steps, very counterproductive steps to this issue. But that apart, is it worth this privatization? Because we thought that power was going to be evident everywhere in Nigeria after this privatization. But it looks as though there are failings everywhere. The federal government is saying, oh, it's the distribution companies. The distribution companies too are saying that, oh, if federal government can put all of this in place. So we keep going back and forth. And I've been going back and forth for the past 3-4 years. And that's why when you even increase tariff next year, Nigerians are not sure that they're going to get power. There's no trust. That's the word. No trust.
Thank you very much. You are very right. As for the big man, I'm sure the big man is watching this program live as we speak. He threatened to mute a microphone. He knows himself. We are not the one that will name names. We are not going to be engaged in any further controversies, but we shall continue to expose the shortcomings of the sector and how best we can make it whole. As for the privatization is the way to go. Anybody can go online and read up on what happened between 2013 and now. I think what we need to observe as people, as a nation, and as stakeholders is that it is important for government to respect the sanctity of contract. When you sign a contract with private sector, even public sector, or anybody, any company, anywhere, you have to live by the tenets, the wordings of that contract. What seemed to be a problem was the fact that when the contract was signed in 2013, and the government, the federal government then promised to do certain things like committing to doing 1, 2, 3, 4, and asking the incoming investor to do 5, 6, 7, 8, and saying that the performance of 5, 6, 7, 8 is conditional upon me, federal government, performing 1, 2, 3, 4. And soon after signing the contract and taking over on the 1st of November 2014, the same government reneged on every single thing. One of those things, if I may point out, is the fact that the federal government promised that as we are selling this thing to you, the discos haven't paid $1.4 billion cash paid to the federal government. We will ensure that from day one, you will be selling the product at the appropriate price. Appropriate price, call it any kind of price. What that simply means is that we will be considering the cost of production before we fix the price of the product. And I think that is fair enough. But that was not done. A lot of things happened. Even the issue of what they were meant to do, which they didn't do, like the first 2 years, they said, we'll give you $100 billion subsidy, knowing the kind of antiquated and the kind of entity we're selling to you, and the fact that the labor that were then protesting against privatization did not even allow you to access some of the facilities. We'll give you $100 billion first year and second year. Up to today, not one has been given. I can go on and on. When they gave us the metering target, what they asked us to supply is far, far below what Nigerians need. But we understand that fact because everything they asked us to do in a capital expenditure has to be within the component of the tariff. So if they ask us to spend so much money, the tariff will go up. But for Nigerians who do not understand, oh, these costs are useless, oh, this, we know that we are the one that people think are the bad guys in the sector. When people don't have light, it is the discos. The discos don't turn on the light or turn it off. The discos are not producers of electricity. The discos are not transporters of electricity. But I must admit here on national TV, the discos too are not efficient enough. All of us have a lot of work to do. We are not here to blame anybody. We are not here to point accusing fingers. But we are saying that unless and until we do the right thing, and we tell Mr. President the truth about what is going on, we'll continue to say this thing and talk all the time, stories upon story, year in, year out. Let's get Nigeria working again. No power sector in any country, no development in that country.
Well, Sunday Oduntan, two quick things. The last time you were on this program, you spoke about energy theft. And then now you are here today again, you are talking about metering, and you are also pointing out certain obstacles in the way of the discourse. Isn't it the case that if there is compulsory universal metering, then the problem of energy theft will be mitigated? I'll need you to clarify the position of the discourse in that regard. But even more importantly, the regulator was talking about a forensic audit of the discourse. But I recall that in May, the discourse insisted that the regulator was interfering. How can the discourse claim that the regulator is interfering when the job of the regulator is one of, oversight? And if I recall very well, the discourse went to court over this. Do you have the right to dictate to the regulator the way you want to be, monitored? Because it looks like the discourse say they prefer open book inspection. I hope I got that right, as opposed to forensic audit. Is it that the discourse also have something to hide that we don't know?
Thank you very much, Ruben Abati. I can assure you that the discourse have nothing to hide. And when you talk about discourse, let me repeat here again on national TV. The discourse are run 100% by both the federal government and the private sector players. On the board of every single discourse, there are directors, appointees of the federal government, who I believe do not sleep during board meetings, who I believe, and I know for a fact, that they participate 100% in everything that happens within the discourse. But this is our point. You see, let us be honest, let us be open on issues. Discourse accounts are audited all the time. Apart from the auditing that happens, we also have open book, like you rightly said, open book examination, which of course happen, even the CBN do the same thing to commercial banks. We are not against any of that. We are not even against forensic audit. But what we are saying is that if you enter my house and there are 4 bedrooms in the house, all the doors are open, and as you enter the sitting room, you think you can smell something. Something smelly is going on. I think it is only fair for you. You must enter all the rooms in that house. But if you choose to go to my mother's room alone, and you think she's naked inside that room, my mother has a right to shout. What I'm saying is that if there's a need for forensic audit, why this goes alone? Even within regulatory audit in this country, we need to know what everybody is doing. So it is perceived, and I'm happy not just the discourse are saying this, even public speakers, commentators, journalists. I still read an article last Sunday by Mr. Simon Kolawole, who is not part of the disco. The last time I checked, he doesn't have a share in any disco, saying that why targeting the discourse alone for forensic audit? So we need to do things the proper way. We believe in the rule of law, and that's why we went to court. And Ruben, you are a lawyer, and you know that every citizen has a right to approach the court anytime there's a dispute or you think there's likely to be a dispute. So we have nothing to hide. And remember, when you pay for electricity, all the collections are monitored live online by the Central Bank of Nigeria. There's nothing we do that cannot be tracked. So if there's a need for forensic audits, please extend it to everybody, from the generation companies, to the transmission company, to NEC, to NEMSA, all of us, discos, all of us. But when you single us out, like we are the bastard in this household, we are not. Omo Koniwa, we are true children of our own father and mother. And if all of us, the stakeholders, are born by the same parents, why do you have to single out one? So that is the only reason. And it is not a difficult thing. We welcome anything that will make the power sector viable and better, but what we do not welcome is victimization. Because it's like, I'll give you an example. Our regulator recently read out, as usual, an order. The order says, the discourse must ensure that every household must be metered by the end of 2001. This is the same regulator who are taking metering away from us. They gave it to private players, contractors, meter manufacturers, meter importers. It is like you are telling me, if Reuben Abacha and I live in the same estate, and I'm the secretary of the Residents Association, but I live next door to Reuben Abacha. If the chairman of the Residents Association now tells me that I must ensure that Reuben Abacha's wife must have a child before the end of 2021, now, question number one, how do I ensure that Reuben impregnates his wife? Am I going to do it for him? In Egbaland, where we both come from, we don't do that. We don't sleep with another person's wife. How will I ensure that there must be a child when I'm not going to put facility inside the woman? That is exactly what they're asking us to do. You can't ask me to meter Nigerian when you are taking the mission away from me. The way to go, let the federal government, maybe through the CBN, massively bring in meters, standard meters. Let everybody be metered. Even when you give meters, install meters everywhere. You can now program the cost inside the meter, give it to Nigerians free of charge, program it inside that meter, let people, as they vent, they pay for their meter. And as time goes on, even when they are leaving one location, let them be able to take their meter from Lagos to Maiduguri without any hassle. Stop blaming the discos. Stop making us look like the bad guy. We are not bastards. We are legitimate children in this home. In this Nigeria and in this sector, we are one and the same. When you talk about disco, the generation company, transmission company, and distribution company, the three of them are siblings from the same mother and the same father. The father is today, the father is President Buhari. They had a father before, known as President Jonathan. In future, there will be another father. Remember, this thing is continuum. Nobody can be in a place forever. Let us work together to make Nigeria better.
Thank you. Well, even though there's signs of relief from the consumers about the deferment of tariff increase, what is the cost to the federal government? Because according to the Minister for Power a few weeks ago, in referring to the April date that was then postponed to July 1st, he said the subsidy being incurred had to be maintained. That will cost the federal government some amount of money. And now it's further deferred until next April. So what is that? And also to the discos, what is the cost to you? Because obviously you must have had plans for this increase in tariff that you now have to shelve.
Well, I can only speak for the discos. Like I told you, you cannot ask me to tell you at what time does my father go into my mother's room in the night. I will have been fast asleep by then. You are a bad girl. Tundu, you should know this better when it comes to proverbs and wisdom. What I can tell you, the cost to the discos is, of course, the build-up of more shortfalls, which, of course, leads to more inefficiencies. That is the cost to the disco. As far as the cost to the federal government is concerned, only the federal government can tell us what the cost is to them. But let me continue to remind Nigerians that every time people talk about intervention, like there was a time, the issue of 1.3 trillion that has been spent between 2014 and now, people were saying, disco, you've been giving money. No, only 58 billion of that money came down to the discos. And we should just put everything in perspective. The issue of subsidy, they are not meant for the discos.
Well,
so the federal government will do the needful, and we hope everybody will do and play their own role.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On that note, we have to bring this to a close. We look forward to having a conversation with you another time, another day. Same platform.